Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tons of 505. Welcome to the channel if you're new, or welcome back if you're a lovely subscriber. Today, I'm going to be continuing my top 100 album series. And before I begin, I was going to give my usual shout outs to my friend group who's been watching my videos. So, thank you very much. And also, I also got to give a shout out to Jacob Martin and Ryan Cam for not only watching these videos, but they've also been listening to the albums as they've been going along. So, special shout outs to them. And of course, Jason from Jason the Old Millennial and Scott from Sound Lab Studios. On their channels, they've been doing their top 100 album list, so definitely check their list out. Very fun to watch their list. And yeah, that's about it. Um, well, this is album number 30. Yeah, 30. We're only up to 30 now, so we're getting closer and closer to finishing it. Crazy. This series has gone a long way since starting at 100. And yeah, this has been a fun series to go through. And yeah, let's record as many as I could today. And yeah, let's go. This album is the Paul Simon Songbook, released August of 1965. No specific date, sadly. It was released in the UK. So yeah, it's interesting. It was only originally released in the UK because Paul Simon, after for a little background info, after the Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. album, which thankfully I have right here, after the Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. album was released, it went nowhere, didn't sell well. Garfunkel went to go back to school, and Paul Simon moved to England to, kind of pursue music still, because Paul Simon's music career was not over after Simon Garfunkel breaking up that initial run. So he was like, I want to still make music, you know. So he comprises this album of like kind of demo-y ish songs. Like there's not that much production on this album. It's just kind of more folksy. But this album is even more folksy than that album, which it's even more or less. It's like even less produced than Wednesday Morning 3 a.m., which is to me interesting because that album kind of more lower production than compared to the other albums that they would release, especially like Sons of Silence, which should end up being that would be their second album, but it's like a album that came before Sound of Silence and the album that came after Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. It's just like a weird middle period album for Simon, which it's interesting. I like it, but having all that said, let's review the album. And of course, also I'll also tell you where these songs would end up going on the Simon and Garfunkel albums. First song on the album, "I'm a Rock." Of course, if you're a Simon Garfunkel fan like me, you know this would be on the Sound of Silence album. Last song. I love this version. I might even go. I actually think this is the best version of the song. There's quite a bit of versions of this song. My three favorites are the Simon Garfunkel version, of course, will be the top three version. The Hollies version, my second favorite version, but this version definitely the best because it's just Paul Simon by himself. Definitely gets that feeling of being alone. Great song. Leaves That Are Green, another fantastic song on the album. This was actually on the Sound of Silence album. Uh, really good song. Again, another just fabulous like acoustic song. I love it. Church is Burning. Funny enough, this song would not be on any of the Simon and Garfunkel albums, which is interesting because this would have been pretty good on Sound of Silence, but sadly did never recorded. Yeah, this is a really good song in the album. Always been one of my absolute favorites on this album. Uh, April Come She Will, another Sound of Silence. What would become a Sound of Silence song. Pardon me. Another outstanding song. Of course, as you would know, Garfunkel would end up doing the solo lead vocal on this song, but it's interesting to hear that. It's interesting to hear Paul Simon doing this before Garfunkel doing it on that album. Which version do I prefer? I don't really know. I think both versions are equally great. I think Garfunkel does it great. I think Simon does it great. I don't really have a real preference on this song. Uh, Sound of Silence, of course. This is on Wednesday morning, 3 a.m., and it would be on Sound of Silence with the bigger production. Yeah, I like this version. Probably my least favorite of the three versions that would, like, compared to this, the Wednesday morning, 3 a.m., and the Simon and Garfunkel hit version. This is my least favorite of the three versions, but I still like it, though. Most Peculiar Man, another Sounds of Silence song that would become on that album. Definitely very haunting on this one because it's just acoustic. Very, very haunting. I really like it. It's a really good song. And side two, He Was My Brother. This was actually on Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. I guess he decided to re-record it, and man, this is even more sad than the Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. version. That song, their version on that album's depressing already, but this one, even just a tad bit more depressing. One of the best songs in the album, in my opinion. Kathy song. This would end up being on Sound of Silence, but both versions sound very similar to each other. I guess you can kind of tell the difference between the two, but both are acoustic, both are demo-y sounding. Both are very similar. Side of a Hill. This is the second cover on the album. He Was My Brother was the first cover. This is the second cover. And this is the second song that would not be on any other albums, which is interesting because it's interesting to know that. Well, technically, he would end up reworking the song to become Scarborough Fair for the Parsley Sage Rosemary and Thyme album, which is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting to think about that. Last three songs, though, are interesting because the last three songs of the album would end up becoming songs for the Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme album. The first one being Simple Testatory Philippic. It's interesting to hear the acoustic version because this is like a Bob Dylan impression song. So I like to see this as like the imitation folk Bob Dylan, and then on the Simon and Garfunkel versions, like the imitation electric Bob Dylan. So we get both sorry, we get parodies of both artists, which was pretty cool. Flowers Never Bend with the Rainfall. This version's good, but I much prefer the Simon and Garfunkel version that would be on Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. This version's good. It's just not nowhere near as good as that version. Then it closes out with Patterns, which it's so interesting because like Patterns, it would be a lot more experimentation on the Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme album, but this one's just more folk, and it's like interesting to hear that. But great way to close out the album, I might add. Okay, top five. Pretty difficult top five. I might have to add. Number one, I'm gonna go with Most Peculiar Man. Number two, pretty difficult top five to make. Number two, I'm gonna go with He Was My Brother. Number three, Leaves That Are Green. Number four, I'm a Rock. Number five, Kathy Song. And well, if you have any thoughts on this album, leave it in the comments below. But besides that, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. So long.